Thank you all so much. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for asking me back. That's a good sign always when you get asked back. I want to thank my family for coming today as well, and all of you on Zoom. I see Mad Cat there. I just played with Mad Cat last week. So hello everybody, and it occurred to me as I came here today, and people in this community perhaps know me as primarily a musician, as a drummer, more specifically a tabla player. And yes, there's no tablas here today. I didn't bring them because a huge part of my life has been creating music with children. So currently I'm a public school teacher. I teach at Patton Gill Elementary School and also King Elementary. I teach kindergarten through 5th grade. And I've been doing that. I started teaching in schools in 2006. And it was that first year that I created my first song with a class. And it was like everything that I had learned in school about teaching music kind of either it all went out the window or it all came in the window. I don't know. Everything suddenly opened up. The world opened up because the creativity of young human beings was overwhelming, and how easy and amazing it was. So I want to start with a story that kind of sums it up, why I love it so much, and it comes from somebody named Sir Ken Robinson. He passed away a few years back, but he's a pioneer in the advocacy of teaching creativity in our school systems as a primary focus of our school systems. And here's the story. I absolutely love this story. So it's a story of a little girl who was in a drawing lesson at school. She was 6. She was at the back drawing, and the teacher said this girl hardly ever paid attention, but for this lesson, she did. The teacher was fascinated. She went over to her and she said, "What are you drawing?" And the girl said, "I'm drawing a picture of God." And the teacher said, "But nobody knows what God looks like." And the girl said, "Oh, they will in a minute." And, you know, hearing the stories from Sunday school, the confidence and the bravery and the ability to answer and just say, this is what it is. This is how I have received this information, and this is how I put it back out into the world. And maybe they don't understand quite why people are laughing at it. Maybe they don't quite understand what they're saying, but that is not the point. The point is that you've engaged students, asked them, what do they know? What have they learned? And as a teacher, I hear those answers. I'm like, oh, geez, I need to do a little bit better job teaching this, I think, if you're getting all of these messages. So, but if your focus is creativity, then suddenly the dynamics shift. And even the kindergartners that I teach nowadays feel like colleagues to me, like partners in this creative endeavor, with just as much to say and just as much to do. So I have a question for you, because I was asking my daughter if she knew, and then I tried to ask Siri, I tried to use AI, I couldn't figure this out, but I know somebody here will know. There's a melody, it goes da 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 dun 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 in the Hall of the Mountain King. Okay, thank you. So, you know, why is that relevant? Because one of my very first memories of myself in music class was 6th grade. It was 1986. I was in 6th grade at Graveret Middle School in Marquette, Michigan. It's my hometown. I remember it very clearly. It was a nice sunny day, 2nd floor of the school, and the board, we were facing the board, our backs were to the window, we could see the street outside, but we were totally focused on this lesson we were getting from a student teacher, a brand new teacher. And as far as I remember, it was the first time we had had an official lesson with the student teacher. And the student teacher had written rhythms on the board. The first rhythm was so simple, right? And so, yeah, everybody claps back. I go, and you go. Okay, it's pretty good. We could tighten it up a little bit, but that's okay. All right. And so there was all these rhythms, and then she proceeded to say, okay, now for the first rhythm, give me some words that rhyme with it. And this, I didn't realize it till today. The first word, somebody raised their hand and they said, let's see, they had to fit that rhythm, and they said, Spuds McKenzie. Remember Spuds McKenzie, the dog with the eye patch? I think he sold beer. It was in a different time, right? So somebody said Spuds McKenzie, and I was the second one. I raised my hand, and I was the second one called on, and my rhythm was, and I remember being so excited, like, whoa, we're going to make a story. And so I said, has a lot. Has a lot, what? And I was so fascinated in what would come next. And I was actually devastated because the next person had this rhythm, and they said, banana. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Spud McKenzie has a lot, banana? That doesn't make any sense. But to this day, I did write it down, but you can ask my daughter, I proved it to her, I have this memorized. The tune that we ended up with went, Spuds McKenzie has a lot, banana, apple pie, watermelon's very cool, Mr. Sandman high. It means absolutely nothing, right? As I think about it, I can think about the different students kind of checking in and out of the lesson because it didn't seem to make sense, or whatever it was. And then at the end, we were singing these kind of thrown together words to this very well-known piece of music. Now, I have tried, and I do not recall any other lesson from that music class. I know I had them. I know they affected me. I know they have affected my music making and my passion for music, but I cannot recall them like I can recall this one. So it was, fast forward now, it was last year. I'm sitting in the front lobby of Patton Gill Elementary waiting for school to start, and one of the teacher assistants came up to me. She seemed very nervous, and she said, Mr. Churchville, do you remember me? And I was like, no, I'm sorry, I don't. And she said, I'm Reshma. And it's like, okay, Reshma, can you give me an idea where we've met? And she said, I was in your third grade class. She was a third grader, so she was about this tall. Now she is, a full-grown adult and a colleague. And I was like, oh my gosh, so you were a third grader. And I said, whose class were you in? She said, I was in the class that did the second Go Like the Wind song, the remake of the first one that you all did that we thought we could do better. I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And I remember the room we were in, and we remembered what it was like outside. We remembered the people who were participating, and she remembered her part of the music that she contributed to. And so these two things I've thought about a lot this week because I think they're very connected. The idea that just opening up the space to create something new, not knowing how it's going to end up, not knowing where you're going or what could happen, is not how teachers spend their time planning for their classes. Let me make some time here to do something, and I don't know what the outcome will be. I don't know how we'll get there. I don't know how long it will take. This is the opposite of all the requirements of a lesson plan, okay? Those are all of the questions you need to answer for a lesson plan. And there's something about the fact that you just open up the space to create. Now, no longer is it my lesson, no longer is it my song, no longer is it the song of a composer or the great folk song or something, all this wonderful music that we have surrounding us. Now, it's an empty slate. And it's for us to contribute. Now, I learned in my master's studies at U of M, I was very fascinated with this, is when do we start developing an opinion and ideas about music? And as far as the science says, it's around 18 months old that we start developing opinions and ideas about music. At the time, I was teaching in an infant room, and I was sad to find out also that no matter how good of a music teacher you are, in the infant years, in the infant months, I should say, in the infant months, there is no greater music teacher for the infant than the mother's voice. It's the mother's voice that helps to form these ideas and opinions. They Didn't say anything about the father, which bummed me out a little bit, but tried to instill rhythm as much as I could, you know, banging a drum. That's what I seem to do most often. And when we start forming these ideas and these opinions, when we start thinking about music in our subconscious and developing these ideas, this is really where our culture and our societies spawn from. Because without getting into the music theory of it all, there's music theory that can explain, what some of you may know as a cadence, where it goes from 5 to 1, and that's the most important cadence. Bum, 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 bum. It's what the timpanis play at the end of the orchestras. 5-1, 5-1, or so do. Well, there's cultures in Africa, and specifically in Ghana, where they end on a 4 chord. They end on a completely different chord than we would imagine. I'll demonstrate, why not? So, something that feels very familiar to us. And that is the end, and it feels like the end. Well, there's cultures in the world that play and that feels just as strongly as the end. Not for us, not for anyone who's brought up in this culture, but if you can get your mind around the fact that a whole nother set of ideas is just as valid, just as wonderful around music as the ones that we have grown up with and the ones we have been told. So my thinking is that the earlier you start allowing the students to express what they're feeling, express what they hear, express what they think about music, then the earlier they start developing these comfortable spaces that they can exist. And it's not just about making great musicians. It's not just about training and building skills. That's all part of it, and that's all a big part of my teaching as well. But what it's more about is creating the space in our lives to make something new. And music is available to every single one of us. There's an African saying as well. It says, if you can talk, you can sing. If you can walk, you can dance. I've seen people who can't walk dance just fine too, by the way. And if we have a voice, the most ironic thing to hear somebody say with their voice is, oh, I'm non-musical. I'm sure there's some in here who have been guilty of that, who believe, I don't have music, I don't have rhythm, I don't have this. When you do, you probably, likely, have never been given the space to explore yours and what it is. Every single thing that I'm saying today, every single thing that comes out of my mouth is a note that could be found on a piano keyboard. Or there's some notes in between, perhaps, There's I studied for a long time music from India, and a lot of the misconception of the music of India is people say, oh, they have all these microtones and small beats that we don't use in our music. And that's completely not true. They actually have all of the tones we use. In America, we'll learn do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. In India, they'll learn sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. Same exact notes, same exact lessons. I've taken beginning singing lessons from singers from India who don't even speak English, and those are the lessons we get, the same major scale lessons that we have. I met a professor, he's no longer at U of M, but he was at U of M, he was a music theory professor, and he was of Indian origin, and he got tasked with studying one of the biggest data collections of the Indian raga system and all the ragas. And he ended up putting all the ragas into 2 categories. Can you guess which they might be? Major and minor. Now, the infinite amount of flavor, spice, a little more of this, a little less of that goes into the music is what makes the characteristics of this music. But I would argue that a blues player playing on a guitar or singing the blues hits just as many of those in-between notes as in any Indian raga. So what I'm trying to do is take away any and all excuses you might have for saying you can't do music. Because students, I have seen it as young as 3rd grade, where they say, oh, I don't sing, I can't sing. And what that is a reflection of an adult or an influence in their life having told them that and having convinced them of that. Because some people will tell you that, and you believe them, and you carry that with you. I had music teachers like that for absolute sure, all the way through college, who made me feel ashamed of what I didn't know or couldn't do at the time they were asking me to do it. Very easily, a kind of teacher could talk to the Sunday school students and be very upset at all those answers. Oh no, 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 no. We have to go back to square one here. Finding the joy in those answers, that's the key. I think that is a big key. Yeah. So, as I was thinking about this, I tried to think about what do young humans do differently that allows them to be so creative? What's different? And that was a little hard to put my finger on, because while I'm creating with young students, while I'm creating with musicians, I see this creativity blossom in all ages of human being. It doesn't go away. It's not something that is repressed as you get older. One of the most creative and one of the people when the pandemic came, y'all remember that? Yeah? When that came and suddenly all of the shows were gone, all of the live performance was gone, one of the most creative people in my life called me up and said, we gotta make some music. And that was a guy who's celebrating his 75th birthday on April 2nd at the Ark, by the way. His name's Peter Magcat Ruth, yeah. So he was spurring the fact that we have to try to do this, even though nobody knows, again, nobody knows how or what we have to do it, or how it'll turn out. And the first show we played online was, I hit a drum and the microphone picked it up, and when it went out into the world, it was delayed, and then somehow the delay got picked up by another microphone. And so now there was 2 hits going out into the world, and every time I hit the drum, it just cycled more and more and more hits. So by the end of our song, it was like a cacophony of sound just all feeding back on each other. And we played like that for an hour. When we went back to listen to it, it was just the trippiest music I've ever heard in my life. It sounded nothing like what we actually made. But that brings me to one of the first things that young humans do so freely, is they make mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. I'm careful as a teacher not to call them mistakes. I call them ideas. They are ideas. And one of the first things we do when we're creating is we say all ideas matter. Every single idea you have. When we are collaborating with each other, when we are working with each other, ideas come from all different perspectives and views of what's happening at the time. I'll give another example. I have so many from students. Is that we were doing a song about animals in first grade. This was just a couple months ago. First graders writing a song about animals, and it's like, well, what animals could we sing about? And somebody said a bird, and how about a shark? And then we started rhyming those words together. And then somebody said, a hot dog. And it's like, oh, we were way into it, and we had no reference to any food or anything, and so I'm like, a hot dog. And then he stood up, and he's like, yeah, a hot dog, but it can talk, and it can and the hot dog can tell the other animals what to do, and the hot dog can, and he just took this song, woo, this way. So instead of shutting it down and saying, no, that's wrong, what our protocol is when we're creating together is that is an incredible idea. I press record. I always record it. We have this wonderful technology to help our recording process or our creative process. So I press record. I listen to his idea. When it comes towards the end of the year, we're going to write that song about a hot dog that can talk to all the other animals. Why not? It didn't fit in that song, but we were able to move on. And he was able to say, yeah, I had a good idea. It's still my idea. I can take that idea and maybe it'll get used somewhere else. Some crafty fifth graders especially, they think, ooh, I'm not going to tell them my idea. I have a really good idea. Hear this all the time. Mr. Churchville, I've got a really good idea for a song, but I don't want to say it out loud. Okay? Can I go home and record it myself? I was like, let me think about that. Yes. Go ahead and go home and create yourself. The creative process is the goal when I'm teaching about making music. What is the process that we do? So I just saw a debate on analog versus digital in music creation. There's studios in Ann Arbor that are all analog, meaning they use tapes. You got to rewind the tapes and do it over again and record over your old recording, and you never get that one back. Whereas in my home studio, I can record 100 different takes, and all of them are right there, and I can move the notes around however I want digitally. And this digital kind of boom that we all went through, and the fact that during the pandemic, actually, the teachers, administrators, and students all got shoved into the deep end of technology, and we all had to learn how to use it. 6 years ago, if I said, hey, can we Zoom this talk? That would zoom right over most of our heads. It would have zoomed over mine. And now it's just a part of our lives that we use. So one thing that happened with students is the students got this program that Ann Arbor Public Schools, thankfully, got this program for all students. It's called a multi-track recording software. It's all online based, so they have their own account. They can create all of their own music. They have thousands and thousands of loops that they can choose from. They have loops of instruments from all over the world. So we have students, Arabic students, and they type in Arabic, and you get all the drums and flutes and different kind of rhythms that are used in Arabic music, and they start piecing them together and putting them together like Lincoln Logs. And so I have created with students, as a class, as a collaboration, over 200 songs over the 14 years I've been teaching. However, when this technology came and the students were allowed to create themselves, in the first 2 years of me giving them the space to do it, I got over 2,000 pieces of music. That's from 200 students, an average of about 10 pieces of music per student. Just creating and creating and creating. So what else makes them different? And this is a tough one to achieve, but we can achieve it. They don't know what they don't know. And isn't that tough to achieve? You don't know what you don't know. And I've been studying music a very long time, pretty intensely. I practice every day, try to practice every day. And I discover every day how much I don't know about music, how much I just scratched the surface. I mean, if you want to be humbled, change your major in your 7th year of college to tabla drumming. And it's like you're going out into an ocean, and then move to a city where there's maybe 2 or 3 tabla players. And I mean, in the Midwest that you can play with. It's really humbling. And I'm very thankful for it, that I understand how much I don't know. And then go to any other music from China, music from Africa, music from anywhere that we see, and there's so much that we don't know. What that means is we don't know what we don't know, all of us. And so we can create. You can create. Let your light shine. I heard that. That's good. Yeah. So I'll just go through some of these other ideas quickly. Young humans do not fret about spending too much time on any one little idea. This is something I've had to learn. Like, I would look at the clock, oh my gosh, I just spent 2 hours on 4 measures of music. What have I done? I didn't do any of my other list of things. However, those 4 measures of music are now done for the rest of my life. And this is something I discovered in making albums and releasing music to the world, is that once it's done, it's done. There is nothing you can do to change it. It's actually called a release because you have to release your work, and you no longer get to hold on to it. It's no longer yours. And so students feel that ownership of just the smallest thing. This gets to another problem with teaching creativity, that it's a problem according to our current system, is how do we assess the student who has given me 20 pieces of music and the student who has given me one? The student who's given me 20 pieces of music has spent one afternoon. The student who gave me one piece of music has spent 2 months on that one piece of music. So how do you assess who has done the better work? It's almost impossible. I argue it's not even necessary if they have discovered their process, if they have discovered what it takes. Students are quick to own their ideas without worrying if they have done it, if it's been done before. Even some students will sing songs that others know, but they're like, no, I just made that up. And they're like, no, that's a song. No, I just made that up. And they'll even get so passionate that they'll start crying. And it's like, I remember George Michael got sued, and he got off because he proved unconscious copyright infringement. He could prove from his process, from showing his creative process, that he was in no way listening to this song. He was just creating on his own. Ed Sheeran, the famous guitar player, you might have heard the court case he just won, where he brought his guitar into the court. And the family, the estate of Marvin Gaye, was suing him because he used the same chord progression, the same group of chords for his song as Marvin Gaye used for Let's Get It On. Well, Ed Sheeran took his guitar into the court and played about 50 songs that all use that same progression, that predated Marvin Gaye's and that come before and come after. And proving you cannot copyright a piece of music that brings you to another, whatever it is, your message in the music. Students own their small victories and repeat them a lot. This is something that I see adults do something, enjoy it, and then say, oh, well, that was fun. Okay, whew, done, and walk away. Students say, oh my gosh, that was fun. That's the thing I'm always trying to do, is something fun. And they'll repeat it over and over and over again. And so this is something new, something a little different. Yeah. Okay, so now, one of the first people I ever created music with started with my nieces and nephews, and then moved on to my children. And we've never released the music to the world, but every year for 6 years, Charlie and Rosemary and I all created a song. See, Mom's birthday is on December 29th, that space between Christmas and New Year's, where we're always on break. And so we get to create a song together, and we create a happy birthday song, a new happy birthday song every year. And opening up that door of creativity. So now I would like to welcome, for our debut premiere, first ever time performing in public, my daughter Rosemary. So we're going to start with We're going to start with a piece that I just heard a few weeks back at the Michigan Music Conference. The Celine Fiddlers came to the conference and had a little jam session, and they handed out all their music. So we're going to play a tune from the Celine Fiddlers. And this tune has a segment for improvisation. And that's going to be Rosemary's job. She gets to improvise. All right, so this is called Made Behind the Bar. So then we're going to finish up here with, this is a piece of music that was written years ago by, it was a third grade class. And it was all about the fact that the end of the year was coming and they were moving up to the next grade. And when we made this song, this was back in 2007, I believe, when we made this song, sang it at the moving up ceremony at our elementary school, it became the song. It became the song that was sung at every moving up ceremony for the next 10 years. And so the students who created it are now out of college and often adults. And any of those students here today? No? Okay. I'm always checking, you never know. So this one is called Moving Up.